Greetings from Wyoming. OSY Guy here with a review of Ubuntu Gnome 16.04. I've been a freelance computer technician for 13 years and I switched to Linux 6 years ago, and I've used various distributions since then. But I've settled on Ubuntu Gnome 16.04, so I'd like to talk about that. Now, since I'm saying Ubuntu and GNOME, then I'm talking about two different things here. I'm talking about a Linux distribution and a desktop environment. And the first part of the equation is to address why I chose Ubuntu. When I look for a distro, I'm looking for something that is fast and easy to install and easy to configure, up and running quickly. And certainly Ubuntu fits well into that category. As well, I look for a distribution that has high availability of software. And again, Ubuntu is one of the most popular distributions, and so qualifies very well in that arena. Next, I want to address the desktop environment. What your desktop interface looks like, how you react to the various components on the screen to get your work done. There are all kinds of environments in the Linux world. I saw in an Arch wiki this called desktop environment. A total of 22 environments have been detailed there. Now, most distributions of Linux come out with a default desktop environment. In the case of Ubuntu, the desktop environment is Unity. In Fedora, it's GNOME. In OpenSUSE, it's KDE. And in Linux Mint, it's Cinnamon. In the world of Ubuntu, there are official Ubuntu flavors, as they call them. These are distributions that have an alternative desktop environment. As I said before, Ubuntu uses a default environment of Unity, but there are other desktop environments. I'm showing a total of 6 here, but there are even a few more that are considered official Ubuntu flavors. We're talking about Ubuntu Gnome, which will be found at ubuntugnome.org. Now, I have placed these environments into a couple of columns of categories here. So I've got some that are in this more demanding column, and then I've got 3 in the lightweight column. But basically, the more demanding set of desktop interfaces are going to demand more RAM, perhaps a faster and more modern processor, whereas the lightweight distributions are designed more to get along well on a computer that is older and maybe has less RAM. Let's take a look at the GNOME environment. I'm going to tap my logo key on the keyboard, and what you see as a result here is the set of windows that are being used to run this session. And the first thing I'm going to do is direct you to the response here on the far right side of the computer screen. What you are seeing is the way that GNOME is designed, in that it starts off with 2 workspaces, and as soon as you occupy the first workspace with something, then you end up with a second workspace. And so we'll go to this second clean workspace here for a moment. I'll select it, and then we'll just open up the Firefox browser. And so now we will take a look at that environment over here again, and you see that I have now 3 workspaces. I've occupied the second workspace with my browser, and so a third workspace is showing now as a possible space to use for something else. When you click on Activities or you hit the logo key, the first thing that you get on the left side is this what was a hidden dock It's called officially a dash in Ubuntu Gnome, and this contains all the various favorite programs that I have ended up placing on this bar. And so if I want to run something else, maybe the file manager, then if I click on that, then I open up the file manager. And if I press the logo key again, then I can close both of these windows like that. Now, maybe I would like to do some searching on the web, but I don't want to use the Firefox browser, and I don't really want to use the Google Chrome browser. Instead, I would like to try using Opera. Now I have installed Opera, and so as I start typing, the word Opera is captured up here without my having to click into that box, and it shows the Opera browser, and it also shows something else here that I created a small document just to show you how this search works, in that the search looks for both programs and documents, with in this case the word Opera showing up, and that's why I'm getting those two responses. Now I'll click on Opera, and then that opens up a session of that browser. Now let's try it again. Logo key. If you are not seeing the particular program in this list here, and you don't know necessarily the name of the program you're looking for, then to look at all the programs, you click on the application grid at the bottom of the dash, and then that opens up, in my case, the first screen full of 3 screens worth of applications. And so that's the first screen, here's the second screen, and here's the third screen. Now that was the left-hand corner of the panel. If we go to the middle of the panel, where the date and time show up, this is a default drop down here as well. So we get the calendar, and we also get a list of notifications in here. This is where if I receive a notification of a software update, it will be captured and be placed in here as well. And then the third part of the panel that I want to make sure you understand, and that is the system menu panel over here, where we have the ability to change microphone volume and speaker volume, and can go into the wired settings here to get access to the network manager, and also if we need to get access to any other parts of the configurations of the computer, we can go to settings and get full access to the various control configurations on this computer. That is a quick view of the GNOME environment. There are several utility programs that I do like, and especially I like the file manager that is part of GNOME. Now the file manager in GNOME is the same as the file manager in Unity, which is the Nautilus file manager, but it's just simply called Files when you look for it in the dash, for instance. But one thing I've noticed is that when you go to other desktop environments, like Mate and some of the other leaner environments, sometimes the file manager is missing some features and capabilities that I do like to have. So I'd like to have you just take a quick look at my file manager in this GNOME environment. If I click on the folder here, which is the icon for files, then that opens up my file manager, and do a search here for a particular file that's called Ubuntu Notes. And I'm not going to click on the search icon to do it. I'm just going to start typing. So as I typed in Ubuntu Notes, it automatically captured what I was typing and put it into a search line here. So here's one of my Ubuntu Notes files. And as I double click it, there is a section in here where I really missed having this type ahead search capability that is built into the GNOME version. And I was in Unity and I would try that and it wouldn't work, so I would end up having to click on the search icon first before I could do my searches, and found out that you can add this capability into Unity in that Nautilus, but you have to do it by changing the G settings. Take this line and copy and paste it into a terminal, and then that gives you the ability to have the same behavior as what you just saw here. So this behavior is default in the GNOME version of Nautilus. Now, just one more thing that there are many subtle things about Nautilus, but just want to have you take a look at this as another example. I want to move visually a document from one folder to another, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm going to go to the test folder here, double click it, and you see that I've got 3 files in here. I would like to move Ubuntu Notes to another directory in the home folder, and I want to do it visually, so watch as I do this. I'm going to click and drag Ubuntu Notes and hover over home. When I do that, that automatically opens up the home folder, and I can now choose to hover over ISOs, and then that opens up that folder and shows me the contents of the folder, so I can decide whether or not I want to put Ubuntu Notes into that folder. If I decide that I want to put it into a different folder, I can just hover over home again, and let's put it into scans instead. And so I'll hover there, and no files are there, so I'll release the mouse, and then it drops into place. Again, I'll go ahead and take this and put it back into the home folder, and then into the test folder and release, and I accomplish that task. So just a couple of features that I use on a pretty regular basis using the Nautilus File Manager. Another key feature for me is the way that GNOME 3 handles its window management. I'm going to show you just a couple of things here, and I'm making some comparisons among 3 different desktop environments: GNOME, Unity, and Mate. And I just want to show you some ways in which the GNOME 3 environment handles these things better. First, I'll show you the adjustment handles that are part of GNOME 3, and then doing a window snap that is fairly unique to GNOME as well. And I'll also show you the Alt key. So let me slide down to a fresh screen here, and we'll close this. I'm going to go ahead and open up a blank Gedit window here. So open up a text editor called Gedit. If I need to change the location of this screen, as is the case in just about every environment, you just click and drag the title bar, and that's how you can move the window around. But they do have an extra key. It's the Windows grabber key in GNOME, and that's just holding down the Alt key. When I hold down the Alt key, I can have my cursor placed anywhere with the window and be able to move the window around as well. Now, I was mentioning being able to change the window size easily with the drag handles, and so at the top of this window I can click and drag with that adjustment handle. On the right side I can grab the right handle, left side handle, and the bottom handle. That's a part of the GNOME environment, and actually part of Unity, but Mate is a difficult, challenging comparison, and so I'll talk about that here in just a moment as well. But that second characteristic that I mentioned was the Windows snapping capability. I'll do it from the title bar here, just as an example. As I'm dragging the title bar, if I hold down the Shift key, I can pop the window up very quickly into the top left-hand corner. Or if I just move just slightly with the mouse, I can drop down to the bottom left-hand corner, and to the bottom right, and top right, and back, and so forth. And if I release the Shift key, I can then just bring the window back very easily. So that capability is, to me, extremely compelling. I just really like the convenience of that. Let me give you just one more example on that. Let's open up a terminal, and it shows up right there. I'll hold down the Alt key to grab this in the middle of the window, and then I'll also push the Shift key down and pop it up into that corner. Now let's open up another terminal. So keyboard shortcut for that, and another terminal, and another terminal. This is not running any particular tiling window manager as an extension. This is just the way that GNOME behaves. Let me close a couple of these screens, and we'll open up Get It again. And you'll see that it popped up into this corner again, but I can certainly slide it right into the corner again like this. Now, that command was not going to move me to the edge of the screen, but instead to the edge of whatever open window was already there. And just to show you this final thing, just a wonderful convenience. But if I click and drag with the Shift key down, I can adjust that window to be exactly at the same spot as the bottom of the second terminal window. So what you just saw was the result of a component that exists in each of the of those desktop environments that I mentioned. The window manager component is different from one desktop environment to the other. So in Unity, the manager is called Compiz. In GNOME, the window manager is called Mutter. In Mate, you have a Mutter Lite manager that's called Marco. And also in Mate, you can alternately change to a different window manager that is a little bit more powerful. It's called Compiz. Now, what I want you to see here is that the GNOME manager is able to handle both the ability to adjust the borders easily of a window and also the window snap, whereas the Compiz window manager allows for the adjusting of the borders, but it doesn't allow for the window snap. And the same thing for the Compiz down here. The same feature. You can adjust the borders, but you can't do the window snap. In Marco, now I really do like Mate, but and I do like Marco as the window manager. It's just a more streamlined manager. But the adjustable borders are almost impossible with the Marco manager, whereas the window snap works just like it does in Mutter from GNOME. When I install software on Ubuntu, I use one of these three methods. The first one is simply called software. This has been a tremendous improvement over the original Ubuntu Software Center in that they've switched over to a different tool for this. It's now simply called software, or in Unity it's called Ubuntu Software, but it's different from the traditional Ubuntu Software Center. Much better. Let me give you an example. This is the software center now. It's just simply called software, and it certainly searches for everything quite quickly. If we look for Inkscape, you see how quickly it found Inkscape. So very easily, you can easily move around and find things. If we are looking for maybe the editor that's called OpenShot, but can't remember what that video editor is called, then because this is a catalog, we can click on video down here, and then there's OpenShot showing there. One of the components that I want to zero in on is Software Boutique. Software Boutique is from the Ubuntu Mate team, and they did a marvelous job of creating basically a second software center, if you will. So we're going to take a look at that. So now you can install the Software Boutique from software, and after you do that, it'll be findable this way. And this is a tremendous utility because it allows you to get access to, in some cases, some software that is really hard to find for the Ubuntu community, and makes it into a very quick one-click install. Let me give you an example of Google Chrome. If I scroll down, here's Google Chrome right here. Now, I'm a long-time Netflix addict, and I can tell you that in the past, when you installed Google Chrome to be able to play Netflix, it would be about 5 lines or so of commands to put into a terminal prompt and get it going that way. But in Software Boutique, all you have to do is click the install button over here, and you're done. It's just a one-click install. It's absolutely tremendous and a great way to go. Now, incidentally, this is a Mate tool, but as you can see, it is completely available in other desktop environments. And so you can install this in Unity. You can install it, obviously, here in GNOME, many other places as well. Let's take a quick look at Screen Recorder. Simple Screen Recorder is what I'm using to capture this this session, and that has traditionally been a very hard program to find, and so just to have a tool like Software Boutique to get a hold of that is great. And one final note is a musical note. MuseScore. This became the final moment in my move from Microsoft Windows to Linux. I've been a long-time musician, and I was often having to use a component, or a program, I should say, in Microsoft Windows called Finale. A very expensive program, and program with a very steep learning curve. And when I discovered MuseScore several years ago, that turned into to that final moment where I could say, I no longer am compelled to be in Windows. I can just be in Linux instead. Now, I should say this much: MuseScore is actually cross-platform, so you can run this in Windows as well as on the Mac, and obviously as well on Linux. I'll just open up one of my own scores here, and it's just tremendous to be able to do music notation from inside of Linux and have such a powerful tool. And of course, the price is right here as well, because this is free, both in price and in principle. So good on you, MuseScore. Thank you very much. And then when you can't find what you're looking for in software, and you can't find it in Software Boutique, then very often you'll be able to find deb files out there in the on the internet, and those are compatible installation files for Ubuntu as well. Here's my report on some various flaws and bugs that I've run across. Back over in Ubuntu Gnome 16.10, I did have quite a bit of a problem with this crash report that would pop up all the time, indicating that the Plymouth daemon had crashed. And it wasn't really a problem, but it was definitely an annoyance. And I was hoping that it would be gone in 16.04. At first, it felt like perhaps it wasn't gone because I was seeing it show up, but they did fix it, and so that's good that the GNOME team chased that and got that taken care of. Now, there's also another reported flaw that has to do with the network manager. The network manager is reputed to be failing for some people, and most specifically, it fails apparently when Wi-Fi is in the mix as well. Sometimes it would fail just coming out of sleep. That the laptop, you would close the lid and then come back to the laptop, open the lid, and it would not renegotiate and get back on the network again, and so became quite an annoyance. I did have some occasional problems in Ubuntu Gnome on a couple of my desktops, on a couple of my laptops, but they were occasional problems, and I could restart the computer and it would be okay. And then also, as an alternative, you could run this sudo service network-manager restart in a terminal and be able to get it back on track that way too. But I would say that probably for at least a month now, I haven't seen this to be a problem in Ubuntu Gnome at all. It's gone away. Good news. Another flaw or bug that existed, at least to start with, was that the software center, just called software, would fail to install deb packages. That has gone away as well. I'm able to take Debian packages, double-click them, and they show up in the Software Center, and they do install correctly. So that has been fixed as well. Now, there is a GNOME tweak bug that has to do with the power section of GNOME tweak. So let me show that to you. Here's the tweak tool, and if you go into power, now I do need to make a bit of a clarification here. I am not running the version of GNOME that came with Ubuntu 16.04. That version is 3.18. I have upgraded this version of 16.04 Ubuntu Gnome to 3.20 for the GNOME environment. So I want you to be aware of that. So, here's what I used to do. I would go to the setting for when the power button is pressed, and for the action I would click and hold here, and I would choose shut down. When I would do that in the GNOME 3.18, that would, if I would press the power button, the computer would go to sleep. It would not go to a shutdown. So I guess what I'm trying to say here first is that they've done somewhat of a correction in GNOME Tweak for version 3.20 in that they have eliminated the possibility of selecting shutdown in this list. So my answer to not being able to use the power button shutdown command was to use a keyboard shortcut instead. So let me give you an example of that shortcut that I would do. Now, the first thing I'll show you here is that in this keyboard section, when you first pop into here, if you go to the system section, you'll see that logout is set up as Control-Alt-Delete. So what I have done, and this has gotten to the point where I like it so much that I just do it on every Ubuntu GNOME machine that I have now. I create a custom shortcut. So I click the plus button and I type in a name for this, so we'll call it shutdown, and the command is power off. And then when I click add, it drops in, and then all you have to do is click on disabled, and then that asks for you to put in a new accelerator keyboard combination, and so I'll type in Control-Alt-Delete, and it says, well, you already have this assigned to something else. Do you want to reassign it? And I just say OK, and that's all I have to do. One other feature that is broken in GNOME 3.18 in Ubuntu is that the utilities icon is broken. Now, as I said before, I'm running 3.20, and so it's no longer broken, and so that's my answer, but I'll talk a bit more about the upgrade here in a moment. But let me show you where I was seeing the problem. If I go to the application grid over here, click on Show Applications, and slide down to the last screen, here's one that's called Utilities. In 3.18, when you clicked on Utilities, you would get nothing for an answer in here. This part of the screen would remain blank. So that was a flaw that I noted in 3.18. I'm thinking that they probably will at some point in time send out a fix to that flaw, but my fix was to actually just update to 3.20, and now the Utilities button works inside this Activities Overview. So since I've mentioned it a couple times, the upgrade to GNOME 3.20 is very straightforward and has been, as far as I can tell, flawless. I haven't had any particular problems at all with moving from 3.18 to 3.20. I'm showing a couple of places on the internet where you can find the information to move to 3.20 in this version of Ubuntu GNOME, but just take note that we were adding a repository from the personal package archive here of GNOME 3-staging, and then after you add that and this second repository, then you simply are going to do the first command, sudo apt update, and then secondly sudo apt dist -upgrade, and that will take you from the built-in GNOME version, which will be 3.18, and it'll move it to 3.20. apt-get is now just simply apt. So now the apt-get command in a terminal window works just fine, but they have shortened the command for those of us who do like to not type as much. It sure is nice to just have the apt update, apt install, apt remove, instead of having to do apt-get update and so forth. The kernel in Ubuntu 16.04 is version 4.4. As I said previously, the GNOME version is 3.18, and you are seeing an upgraded version in this session where I'm running 3.20. As I said before, the availability of software is terrific, and the new tool that came from the Ubuntu Mate community called Software Boutique has become compelling enough that it almost makes you not want to switch to any other distribution. Long live Ubuntu, I guess, huh? And again, the window management inside of GNOME, you saw a couple of examples of where I like that a lot better than other desktop environments, and as well the Nautilus configuration is well done. In short, I am seeing a very stable, consistent performance on my Ubuntu machines running Ubuntu GNOME, and so that's my review of Ubuntu GNOME 16.04. Thanks for watching.